Happy Halloween, everybody! I'm your ghost host with the most, and since the spooky season has finally arrived and all of the dead are coming alive, I'm here to talk about 10 more of the best Halloween-themed horror movies. None of these movies are in any kind of order, but number 1 is definitely one of my new favorite underrated indie Halloween horror movies. Now with all that being said, let's begin our list. One Night in October. The residents of a suburban town are tormented by a group of murderous villains, both real and supernatural. As their tales intertwine, they weave together a haunting, inescapable night of terror. This is a Halloween anthology with 3 different stories. After decorating her yard for Halloween, a new member of the neighborhood gets their home broken into by a group of thieves. A couple of friends exploring a cornfield accidentally unleash a curse and are hunted down by an evil scarecrow. And a woman dealing with the loneliness of being in a long-distance relationship is stalked by a mysterious man in a mask. So yes, this movie is pretty low budget, but I was honestly shocked by how great it was, and I'm surprised more people don't talk about it. And the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. All 3 of the stories are pretty simple, but at the same time really unique, very spine-chilling and full of twists and turns. And the Halloween atmosphere in this movie is insane, and definitely reminded me of the opening of Halloween 4, because there's tons of country scenery, outdoor Halloween decorations, and orange autumn leaves blowing in the wind. All 3 of the stories in this anthology are very Halloween-y. Cornfields and scarecrows, monsters in the darkness, killers wearing masks, and Halloween decorations everywhere. I wish this film was more popular, because I really enjoyed it, and I would love to see a sequel someday. This is a very creepy, spooky, visually pleasing, scary movie with incredible Halloween atmosphere. And it's definitely a great Halloween horror anthology to watch one night in October. Hallows' Eve. On Halloween, a malicious prank leaves a young girl facially mutilated and emotionally scarred. 10 years later, the kids responsible for the horrific accident return to town, but this time, their sins do not go unpunished. First thing I want to say is that the killer in this movie looks absolutely nothing like the one on the poster. This is a low-budget slasher. Kinda similar to old school slashers like Friday the 13th, where teenagers keep sneaking off to smoke weed and have sex, and then end up getting murdered. The kills are pretty cheesy, but very bloody and violent. And the whole film takes place at a haunted hayride attraction on a farm. So there's cornfields, haunted houses, pumpkins, hay bales, hay rides, and orange leaves everywhere. The main reason I was interested in watching this movie is because Danielle Harris is in it, and she's definitely the highlight of this film. This movie is pretty simple and cliche, but it has a great country setting, it's bloody and fun, and has tons of autumn atmosphere. The house is October built. Looking for the ultimate scary experience for Halloween, 5 friends set off on a road trip to discover the scariest haunted attractions they can find. But strange things start to happen, and it becomes clear that the haunt has come to them. This is a found footage horror movie, and I was very impressed and surprised by how great it was. And this movie is genuinely scary, because it's such a realistic concept and something that could and probably has happened in real life. These people are looking for the most hardcore, extreme, scary experience they can find. But there's a certain point where being scared stops being fun, and you become so scared that you're genuinely scared for your life. And that's what this movie is all about. How far is too far before the lines between scary fun and scared to death become so blurred that you don't know what is real and what is fake anymore. But besides being genuinely scary and unnerving, this movie is also extremely Halloween-y, and filled with clowns, skeletons, evil dolls, autumn leaves, pumpkins, and fall atmosphere. This is one of the best found footage movies I've seen in years, and it will certainly make you tremble with fear. Mischief Night. On the night before Halloween, a babysitter is stalked by a masked killer and must fight to survive. But things take an unexpected turn. I know the description sounds very vague, but this is one of those movies where the less you know about it, the better, so try to avoid spoilers. This movie has great Halloween scenery, and an overall Halloweeny vibe. There's Halloween decorations and pumpkins everywhere, and lots of Halloween pranks like TPing houses and smashing pumpkins. This movie is very different from your typical slasher films, but if you go into it with an open mind, knowing it's not just a straight-up slasher movie, then I think you might really enjoy it. If you want to watch a scary movie filled with fright, then you should definitely watch Mischief Night. Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. After waking up from a 10-year coma, Michael Myers returns to his hometown on Halloween to kill his niece and terrorize the citizens of Haddonfield. So I talked about this movie in my first top 10 Halloween horror movie list, but my opinion has definitely changed since then, because this is my absolute all-time favorite movie in the whole Halloween franchise. This is the first chapter in the Halloween Thorn trilogy, and the first appearance of legendary Scream Queen, Danielle Harris. This might be a silly thing that makes me love this movie, but the opening credits are just gorgeous and dripping in autumn atmosphere. I love seeing all the Halloween and fall decorations, the orange leaves blowing outside, the country scenery. It totally gets you into the Halloween spirit. Whenever I think about fall, I think about the opening of this movie. I also love that in this movie we actually see people trick-or-treating and buying Halloween costumes. Michael even goes into the costume shop and steals his iconic mask. This is one of the most Halloween-y movies ever. So if the Halloween spirit is what you desire, then you should watch Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. House of Purgatory. 4 teenagers seek out a legendary haunted house on Halloween. But once inside, they realize it's not an ordinary attraction, and the house might actually be able to recreate their deepest fears. Do not let the poster for this movie fool you. I know it looks like a very generic, low-budget horror movie, but it definitely isn't. This movie is very similar to the Halloween film Haunt, but what makes this film different is that it's a supernatural, paranormal horror movie. So in this movie, the characters have their secrets exposed and worst fears brought to life. And I was very surprised by how deep and realistic the characters' fears were. I expected them to be afraid of something cliché and generic, like clowns, but I was very shocked when each of their fears were revealed. For example, one of the characters is secretly gay and terrified of his friends and family finding out, and it was pretty emotional and unexpected. You can tell someone really put a lot of heart and soul into this movie. This is a scary, fun, emotional, beautifully creepy Halloween horror movie. If you love Haunt, then you will definitely love this movie too. Devil's Night. On Halloween, a group of friends get robbed and chase the thief into the woods, but things go terribly wrong and they leave him for dead. 1 year later, the 5 friends become stalked by a homicidal maniac wearing a Halloween mask. This movie goes by 2 different names, Devil's Night and Left 4 Dead. And that might be one reason why this movie is so hard to find. It's not available on any streaming services or on DVD, but if you are able to track it down, it's definitely worth watching. This is yet again another Halloween horror movie starring Danielle Harris. This movie is like if you mixed I Know What You Did Last Summer with John Carpenter's Halloween. This is a very fun, stylish, underrated Halloween slasher. Whether you refer to this movie as Devil's Night or Left 4 Dead, it will definitely fill you with fear and dread. Scream 4. On the 15-year anniversary of the original Woodsboro murders, 2 high school students get brutally butchered by a new Ghostface killer. Sidney Prescott returns to Woodsboro to promote her new book, but after evidence is found in her car, she becomes a prime suspect in the murder investigation, and once again has to face off against a familiar ghost from her past. Now I know you're probably thinking, what is this movie doing on a list of Halloween movies? This movie isn't Halloween related. Or is it? I found out this movie takes place in late September, early October, so the time and date definitely takes place close to Halloween. But now let's talk about the atmosphere and overall vibe of what makes this movie look and feel Halloween-y. At the beginning of this movie, we see that multiple Ghostface masks and costumes have been placed on top of the light poles in Woodsboro, because it's the 15-year anniversary of the original Ghostface murders, and I guess some of the local teenagers like to celebrate that for some reason. But I always thought of the Ghostface decorations as Halloween decorations, and I guess that's one reason why I get a Halloween vibe from this movie. And after it's made very clear that Ghostface is targeting Sydney and her family, her cousin Jill and Jill's friend have a sleepover together and watch Shaun of the Dead. Sleepovers and scary movies. Yet another reason I get Halloween vibes from this movie. The kids at school have a cinema club where they discuss horror movies, and something cool I noticed is there's a poster on the wall of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And probably the most Halloween-y part about this movie is that all of the teenagers have a horror movie marathon at a creepy abandoned barn and watch all 7 stab movies. And it's so badass to see Ghostface show up and start stabbing people at this eerie, dimly lit old barn. This movie also has one of the best openings to any of the Scream films, as well as my absolute favorite Ghostface killer, and some of the most memorable kills in the entire franchise. If you want to watch a scary movie that will make you scream, then this one is perfect for Halloween. Boo! A broken family refuses to pass along the chain letter they receive on Halloween. Ignoring the warning of the curse, the family slowly begins to be haunted by their worst fears and mistakes of the past by an evil supernatural entity. Don't get me wrong, I love Halloween slashers, but I wanted something paranormal and supernatural, and I found exactly what I was looking for. So basically, the family gets this note on their front porch, and it's a very creepy poem, basically saying you are now cursed, and you can either give this letter to someone else and pass the curse along, or be haunted and consumed by fear. And of course, nobody but the young boy believes it's real, so everyone else ignores it until they become haunted and start losing their minds. I know the name of this movie and some of the posters make this film look really silly, but it's actually surprisingly dark, especially towards the ending. This is a slow-paced, paranormal, psychological horror movie, with great cinematography, great effects, great acting, and lots of blood-curdling scares. If you're afraid of evil spirits and ghosts, this movie might just scare you the most. And now, the #1 movie on my list, and one of the best underrated indie Halloween horror movies is Ginger Snaps. 2 morbid teenage sisters must deal with the deadly consequences after one of them gets bitten by a werewolf. The fall atmosphere is one of my favorite parts about this movie. It's always dark and dreary with orange leaves and Halloween decorations everywhere. The opening scene is of a woman raking leaves in her yard, and then she finds the bloody corpse of her dog ripped into pieces. And I was very shocked because I wasn't expecting such a bloody, disturbing opening scene. But the best part about this film is definitely the 2 main characters. They reminded me a lot of Kim from Blair Witch: Book of Shadows, very gothic and obsessed with death. Ginger Snaps is an underrated, darkly disturbing, sad, scary, heartfelt masterpiece, and a Halloween cult classic. Well everybody, that's the end of my list. Make sure you check out some of these spine-chilling, frightful features, and beware of any creeping creatures. I hope you all have a wickedly wonderful Halloween, and until next time, remember, always be prepared to get scared.